Hi, I'm Krista Redpath, and you are listening to Around the Big Sky in Women's Hoops, a weekly podcast brought to you by Krista Redpath Media, where we break down the game, elevate the story, and champion the female voice.
Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops this week, proudly presented by Don Maddox, the broker and owner of Engel and Volkers, here in Missoula. I got to ask you, I got to get the Hellgate update from you before we get into the Big Sky Conference. Krista's older son playing basketball there at Hellgate. More than just about them, it's just been crazy to look at the margin of error in the Western AA. I mean, these last 8 games, I think Hellgate's won 6 out of 8. But they've gone to overtime twice. They've won by a single point twice. They've won by 2 or 3 points another 2 times. So, I mean, you're talking like the closest games you can think of.
Well, and I think that shows that how competitive it is. And, I mean, we certainly don't have an easy road to make it to the state tournament with no divisional tournament. I mean, we have Gallatin tonight, which is a non-conference game. Is rescheduled from yesterday.
Totally.
I mean, if we're overloaded with snow in Missoula, Bozeman has to be twice as bad.
I did a Zoom with Coach Binford on Monday, and she showed me the view from outside of her office. The snow is taller than the window. I mean, You're talking like 6 or 7 feet of snow piled up. Obviously, they're plowing it out of the parking lot, so it's accumulation, but still unbelievable amount of snow over there in Bozeman.
Right. So this is kind of an interesting timing, right, of a game. And then we have to finish up with the Crosstown at Sentinel on Friday, and then we have both of the Kalispell, both Glacier, and we have to go up to Flathead. We have to win 2 out of those 3 games in order to take 1 or 2, either 1 or 2 to go to the state tournament, which is what you're hoping for. To speak to your point, just about the fact that all these games are so close, you'd like to avoid getting yourself into a playoff situation.
No doubt. I do think, though, that the teams that are in the play-in games, the winners of those are going to take some major juice into state.
I think so, too. I think that's I would think momentum would be great.
Right, because state tournament, you lose the first one, it knocks you down, but it doesn't knock you out. Playing in a knockout game, the pressure that comes with that, but also then, boom, the jolt it's going to give the teams that win, especially if a team can figure out a way to go on the road and win. Man, you're going to take so much momentum in the state tournament.
You have a break there, so if you do finish 1 or 2, you have a whole another weekend to wait for all those playoff games. Some people would say, oh, that's great to rest, but also maybe you lose a little your edge and flow as you head over to Bozeman for the state tournament. So I guess there's pros and cons either way. I know this. You have to reset and be extremely tough to win at the state tournament.
No doubt. Chris Redpath in studio with me, Colter Nuanez here on Nuanez Now. Before we get into the Big Sky Conference scoreboard, what do you think are some of the best storylines right now going on in the Big Sky Conference?
Oh, well, I think the biggest one probably is for the women is Montana State. I mean, they are,
has to be.
One of the nation's best this season, only giving up about 55 points per game, which is 17th in the nation. And, they're about to make history if they have a chance to beat the Lady Grizz. In Bozeman, which, Taylor Cherrick, she's just making national headlines. I think they've been the narrative. They've been really fun to watch, and it'll be interesting to see if they can finish out and close out conference play undefeated. I think that's been one narrative. I mean, we only have 2 weeks left to play.
Totally.
So I think I'm looking for which teams are trending in the right direction. You got an Eastern Washington who's won 3 in a row.
Yep.
You got a Weber State that had, has won 1.
But that's a good storyline, too. Weber State, year 2 under Gentile Jackson, some devastating injuries. We'll get to Weber here in a little while. But for them to be this much better in the second season, it's a great job by her.
NAU won 3. UNC's actually come on and won 2. I do think that there's Montana State that's at the top, then you got NAU, and then you have a cluster of teams that are kind of in the middle that I think, Idaho, Weber State, Eastern, the Lady Grizz, UNC, Sac State, and ISU, to me, are all
it's everybody
bundled together.
It's everybody besides Portland State, right?
Yes. And so I also look at some of these win streaks. I mean, Portland State's taken their punches this year.
Yes,
but it's also, when do you play them so you can get some momentum going in, because teams are playing pretty good against them and clicking on all cylinders, and you want to see that in these last 2 weeks of play. Like, who has the momentum going into the tournament? Obviously, you want to finish in that top 6 so you get the first round bye.
Scoreboard from last weekend, Krista mentioned it, but Northern Colorado swept the weekend, so that's a good upward momentum for the Bears. They beat Sac State 85-72 and also beat Portland State 68-50. So a couple pretty convincing wins. Montana State swept the weekend as well. They beat Weber State 63-45 and then went on the road against Idaho State, won 74-60. Really pulled away in that game late in the fourth quarter. We'll come back to that in just a little while. Northern Arizona swept the weekend as well, which is a nice bounce back for Lori Payne's squad after losing that game in Bozeman. They turned around and just won 3 in a row to stay right in the race, including an 83-67 win over Portland State and then a 75-60 win over Sacramento State. Other scores from the weekend, Lady Grizz got swept. Awful shooting night against Idaho State, especially in the first quarter. I think they missed 16 straight shots and end up losing 66-46. And then they turn around and dig themselves a huge hole against Weber State. But then they come storming back. Close but no cigar doesn't really get you anywhere, though. 73-69. Montana loses to Weber State, so they get swept this weekend, and they have now lost 3 in a row. And then the standalone game last week was Eastern Washington at Idaho. And that's a huge win for Eastern. I mean, Eastern has, as you mentioned, been steadily improving over these last couple weeks. Idaho was sort of the surprise. They got out the gates really early, and they took the Cats down the wire. They won 6 in a row. They've sort of come back down to earth. And so that's a huge win for Eastern Washington. Now Idaho's kind of searching for answers, too.
Well, when I look at that Idaho-Eastern Washington game, I have no idea. Idaho just killed Eastern on the boards, literally by 20.
Wow.
It was 46-28.
How do you ever lose a game like that?
It was mind-boggling to me, but they really turned the ball over at timely times. I mean, 19 turnovers for Idaho. And they struggled finding an answer for Eastern, who found some shooters in the first and second quarter. They dug themselves into a little bit of a hole. And Idaho actually won the fourth quarter. They scored 21 points, but it was just too far gone. I mean, I'm impressed with Peyton Howard, Alexis Pettis. You still have Courtney Grossman. I mean, she has 11 points, 9 rebounds. I mean, she's been the theme of our show this year.
Totally.
She's been consistent. Just 2 days before that, she had a double-double. So it's like, the week before. I mean,
Sure,
she's just
sure.
continually been able to be an impact player in the Big Sky.
When you look at, we're going to do conference awards a little bit later on, but I just wanted to ask you where you think of this race, because I think that one of the tightest races is for Freshman of the Year.
I was just thinking about this.
Taylor Chiric at Montana State, Avery Waddington at Montana, and Courtney Grossman at Eastern Washington are all just right in the thick of it.
Well, they are. And I mean, you look at Avery Waddington. I mean, she's inserted in the starting lineup against Montana State. 5 of the last 7 games, she's been in double figures. An incredible performance against Montana State. 21
amazing,
points,
yeah.
15 of those coming in the fourth quarter. I mean, she's 6'3". And she's able to just take it from coast to coast and pull up and drain that 3 that I think gave everyone, everyone's looking around in Dahlberg Arena.
Like, holy cow, hey, yeah.
But then you can't argue with Taylor Chiric either and what she's done, and also Courtney Grossman. I really feel like it's going to be one of those years where it'll be hard to pick, and maybe they'll give it out as a 3-person award like they did Coach of the Year.
Sure,
The year they gave Coach of the Year to Mark Campbell, Lori Payne, and Tricia Binford.
Totally,
Do you remember that?
they all tied for the league title, yeah.
But I have to say that these 3 players, Taylor, Avery, and Courtney, could all arguably be up for first or second team all conference as well. I mean, they're that good.
Yeah.
And they're both, and all 3 of them bring different parts of the game. But how exciting for the Big Sky.
It's so exciting
to have 3 players like that are just tremendous on both ends of the floor, and they just add such a dynamic to each of these teams.
Well, it shows you the how good the recruiting can be in just this little area too, right? Avery Waddington's from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Taylor Chiric she's from Billings, but prepped at Roberts High School just outside of Billings, and Courtney Grossman from Billings as well. So that's less than 500 miles apart, where you got 3 of the most impact freshmen in the entire conference. So shows you the quality of player you can get from this area as well. Well, the Big Sky Women's Hoops, probably presented by Don Maddox, the broker and owner of Engel and Volkers Real Estate. I want to come back to, though, the Montana State women. They kept on doing it. I think that here's the thing. You and I have talked about this off the air. We're actually running out of things to talk about with the Montana State women because we've talked about them so glowingly for so many weeks in a row. You already know that they play 10 players. You already know that they're forcing 23, 24 turnovers a game. The winning streak keeps going. The overall wins keep going. The net ranking keeps improving. But I think that's why they're so good. That's the number one storyline, is that they have the most defined identity in the conference, and they do these certain things so well, and they can mitigate all these other things. Like, they don't have lulls on the road, or they don't have lulls when they don't shoot the ball well, because they just get after you so hard defensively, and they can roll so many good players through their lineup.
Well, defense wins games.
That's right.
And she won't compromise on that.
Yep.
And I really admire that about her, and she demands it from her players, and they can weather those offensive lulls because they've certainly had them. I wouldn't say this Montana State team is one of the best offensively that I've seen out of what she's produced. There's been some amazing shooters and scorers. I mean, Tori Martell comes to mind.
I mean, you compare and contrast this team with that great Bobcat team where they went 19-1 in league, and they didn't get a chance to go to the NCAA tournament because of the pandemic. But that team and this team, they have similar records. Yeah. If this team wins on Saturday, they'll break that team's winning streak record. But these teams are different. That team was good defensively. And Darian White certainly was like a tone setter as a freshman defensively, very, very much like Taylor Cherrick.
Squires was another, pretty fantastic.
But that team was like a pro team offensively. I mean, that team was an offensive juggernaut, totally different than that team was scoring 90 to 100 points sometimes in league games. Totally different style than what this team brings to the table.
Yeah, they've just been impressive because I really look at the fact that, you don't have any slip-ups. Like, they might have a quarter where they don't play very well, and she resets and finds a way to get people, her players dialed in.
That's the most impressive part. They have had multiple first quarters this year where they're losing by double digits. And then the second quarter, boom, they snap it. Or, like against NAU. NAU was winning all the way until halftime. And in the third quarter, boom, huge run, and they just pull away. So you're right, the ability to reset is so big for Montana State.
They go deep, too. I mean, I definitely think that Esmeralda Morales has been the difference maker this year in terms of bringing a level of poise and leadership to this team at the guard position. But I also think the leadership of Mara Dykstra underneath has been a steadfast. Those two, to me, have been extremely consistent. And then you also have a Caitlin Martin, who we talked about on the show quite a bit, who I think at times has really stepped up to help them, and Ella Johnson, Dylan Phillip, and then you got a Taylor Cherrick. I mean, they go about 8 deep, and they're all impact players.
Totally.
They can all really change a game.
Absolutely. Montana, I said coming into this weekend, last week on this segment, that I thought this weekend was must win for the Lady Grizz. And they did not win either of the games. And I don't want to sound too harsh about this, but in terms of when shots aren't falling, what does that do to the rest of your performance? That is the exact opposite from Montana State to Montana at this exact moment. They weren't making shots whatsoever against Idaho State, and that then let Idaho State dictate the game completely, and then they let it carry over into the first half against Weber and dug themselves way too big of a hole. Make no mistake, there's still plenty of basketball left to play, but this weekend, combined with the fact that they got blown out at home by Northern Arizona, all of a sudden Montana's really behind the 8 ball. 3-game losing streak. They're 2 games below 500 in conference play, and they got the toughest game on their whole schedule going to Bozeman on Saturday. So a sense of urgency needs to exist for Lady Grizz right now.
Well, and against Idaho State, you have Avery, Tyler, and Danny. They're all held scoreless.
Right.
You can't win if those 3 players are held scoreless. And I give credit to Coach Sobolewski, who interim coach Nate Harris also gave credit to. Just a really good defensive strategy. I mean, they just took certain players out of the game. I do think that we're seeing for the Lady Grizz not full strength right now. I mean, Danny went down. She's been in a boot.
Danny Barch, yep. She did practice yesterday.
Abby Schubert, I'm not sure what the deal. I'll find out more as the week progresses. Izzy Zingaro wasn't in the starting lineup and only played 8 minutes against Weber State. So there's some differences, and I did read that Coach Harris talked about not being able to apply that type of defensive pressure for 40 minutes just due to some injuries. So there is that dynamic, right? This part of the season where you're beat up and you got to try to dig deep and find people to fulfill roles. I want to talk a little bit about the Weber State game and what was disappointing for the Lady Grizz, but also very encouraging for Weber State.
Yes.
They hit, 4 threes in the first quarter, or they went 4 for 5 from the 3-point line. And then they also hit 4 threes in the first 5 minutes of the third quarter. So I'm like, where are these shooters coming from? Because Weber State, Gentile Jackson has been able to channel that. She's been able to string together some pretty good basketball for Weber State at different times this year.
No doubt. I mean, Weber is one of, if not the surprises in the conference. If things go their way and they finish strong, they could be the 3 seed, which is amazing considering they've basically been stuck at the bottom of the conference for several years in a row. So great job by Gentile Jackson and her staff to get Weber rolling.
She had 5 players finish in double figures. I mean, so they're very
Great
spread
balance.
too. Now, they don't have a lot of extra. I mean, they're playing 8 kids. That's it. Okay, they don't have any more than 8. So, I mean, you have to give them some credit. But what I see with Montana is, you know, the Lady Grizz started on an 11-2 run at the beginning of the game, and then Weber State scores 19 straight points. They lose their footing on the defensive end, and they're just not able to recover. They lose that intensity. And you have a team like Weber State, they start feeling it. They're making shots. You got to have someone that's going to step up and get a hand in their face, and that's something that's been a struggle for Montana. I will say that, you know, these last 2 weeks of play, you know, you want to build some momentum. So you want to try to figure out, you know, how to string together some good quarters. They have to go over to Bozeman, and then they get to have Sac State and Portland State at home, and then they finish at Eastern Washington. So it's certainly not an easy path for them. But yeah, definitely wanting to get one of those top 6 seeds, Coulter.
The ebbs and flows of the shooting, too. I don't know how you handle that as a coach. Because like Tyler McClimate-Cole, for example, she shot the ball as well as anybody in the conference for like a 4-game stretch. I mean, they were joking about it on the post-game radio broadcast if she was ever going to miss again. She had a game where she went like 8 of 10 from the field. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was watching her
7
shoot.
for 11 against Northern Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, she's shooting lights out.
Yeah.
But then this last weekend, I mean, she went 1 of 16.
Right.
So I think you just kind of got to endure that, right? I mean, you know she's a good shooter. You just want her to keep shooting her shot, not just to pile on her. That's been a common problem for the Lady Grizz, though. Sometimes they're red hot, sometimes they're ice cold.
Well, and they just don't have enough shooters. So if they don't have
Right.
a Tyler McClimate-Cole scoring, then it's a problem for them. They just don't have enough of that. And so I think that is certainly concerning. You know, you want to try to shooters keep shooting, as Coach Harris says. So you got to shoot through that. So I think that, you know, try to string something together. I mean, optimistically, when you look at this Lady Grizz team, they have come the closest to beating Montana State out of
Certainly.
anybody in conference play. So you go over to Bozeman with a little bit of swagger and go out there and compete and let the chips fall where they fall.
Idaho, the Vandals, they won 6 in a row, and since then they've lost 4 out of 6, including 2 straight. Where are we at with Idaho? Is this just a natural regression under a first-year head coach, or is there something else to read into?
Well, they've been just turning the ball over, which
Yeah.
I've noticed, and not having such great defensive stretches is what I mean. They still have some really good players. I think they've just hit some bumps, and this is what happens. I mean, basketball's a game of momentum. They have some really good quarters. I mean, just like they put together a great fourth quarter against Eastern Washington, but they dug themselves into a hole and they couldn't pull themselves out. I still think Hope Hosman, Olivia Nelson, Rosie Schweitzer, Jennifer Adlin, they're all players. They're all ball players, and they'll certainly be there. I mean, you just can't sneeze at their record when you take a look at the fact that they have won 8 conference games. They're 16-8. So they have hit a stumble here with a 2-game losing streak, but I look to them to hopefully figure it out for the tournament.
It started with the 106-76 loss to Northern Arizona.
It was crazy that, I mean, NAU put up so many points against them.
But they bounced back and beat Weber pretty handily, 72-62. And then the offensive struggles have really been the story. 44 points in a loss to Idaho State, 66 in a win against Portland State, but barely. They only won by 4. And then they lost by 3 to Sac State, only scoring 53 points, and then 60 points this last weekend in a 3-point loss. But I think you also see it. Most of their games have just been these narrow margins of victory. And a lot of times if you're winning by just a little bit, there's a regression to the mean. There's statistics about this in the NFL too. Like this was the Houston Texans between last year and this year. They won like 9 straight games decided by 4 points or less. So then this year they lost like 4 or 5 in a row decided by 4 points or less. You're just going to only win about half the games that are decided like that if you're a really good team, let alone if you're just an average team. So I still believe in Idaho. I think that they have a chance to still push down the stretch and get into double-figure league wins, which I think would be a huge.
They have a really uphill battle though, because they have NAU at home, UNC. Yeah. Then they got to go back to Idaho. They got to go to Idaho State, which I think is tough as we're looking at. I mean, Idaho State's playing pretty good at home.
Yes.
And then they got to go to Weber, and then they finish with Montana State. So Idaho has a tough second half of a stretch of season too.
Northern Arizona, nice bounce back this last weekend, and now they've won 3 in a row, which sort of puts that loss to Montana State in the rear view. Another notable mark is that Northern Arizona surpassed 20 wins again. That's the 3rd year in a row under Coach Lori Payne. To put this in perspective, Northern Arizona went about a quarter century without winning 20 games ever. And so to win 20 games 3 years in a row, it's a real testament to what Coach Payne has been able to do. And I think that's a great coaching job as well, to be able to bounce back from the most hyped game of the year, first versus second, on the road. And then you lose, okay, but you played hard and you played pretty well in Bozeman, and then you rip off 3 wins in a row. It's a nice coaching job by Lori Payne.
It really is. And they played solid against Sac State. I mean, a very, very solid win. I mean, we see Player of the Week again goes to Sophie Glancy. I think she's won almost every week. But you can't argue with 21 points, 11 rebounds. I mean, she's just dominating. So she's probably going to be in the running for Big Sky Conference MVP, although I have some strong feelings about that coming from the conference regular season team. That's something that I've always felt, that the MVP should come
Absolutely.
from the who wins the Big Sky, and especially with Montana State. I mean, there's a reason why they're undefeated right now. So that's an argument that I have.
It's been I was talking with Travis DeCure about this the other week. It's been the plague of Montana men's basketball. So here's a great statistic for you. Since Coach DeCure was a senior player back in 1992, so you're talking 33 years ago, Montana has won the league 10 times. They've only had an MVP once because of the style that they play. I mean, the Blaine Taylor, Travis DeCure style is 4 or 5 guys in double figures every night. Like, your leading scorer is never going to average more than 12, 13 points a game.
Right.
And so then the guy on the team that finishes 3rd that averages 20 points per game is getting the MVP every year. I know it drives Travis absolutely crazy, because how can you hang 10 banners and have 1 MVP? It just seems sort of ridiculous.
And we saw that with Sac State. We see Felicia Dean gets it when Darian White doesn't. There's certain things. So I do agree with you that there are. I've made this argument. The Big Sky doesn't listen to me, but maybe they're listening today. But I do think there should be like a Player of the Year and then an MVP.
Sure.
And I know that seems like a real contradicting, but a Player of the Year, that's fine. You have amazing stats.
Yeah, the most outstanding player.
You are the most outstanding player. But the MVP, the most valuable player, the person who's gotten your team to that number 1 seed, to me needs to get that recognition.
I am absolutely with you. The best player on the best team is the most valuable player. And you have to read beyond the statistics. Like, Darian White was a great example. This drove me absolutely nuts. She's the point guard, so she only averages about 12 points per game, but you're talking about 3 steals a game, 6 assists a game. But beyond the statistics, she controlled the entire game from start to finish, and she's on the conference champion that goes to the NCAA tournament when she was a junior. So I totally agree with you, and we'll keep fighting the good fight. Last one I want to ask you about, we're kind of up against it, but you mentioned Idaho State. They are playing a lot better, and we all know this. Idaho State has had everywhere between a first-place finish and a 9th place finish under Coach Sobolewski during this neutral site tournament era. And guess who's always ready for the tournament? Idaho State. Like, they are always playing better down the stretch, and they're always ready for the tournament. And playing pretty well this last weekend, and beating up on Montana, I think that's a step forward for Idaho State.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Tasia Jordan. She's played well. Of course, everyone knows Casey Spank is athletic. She's been in double figures. She's been great on the glass, just hasn't offensively given them as much as I thought she would this year. So he has some players that maybe might be coming on and gelling later in season, which always creates a problem for anyone that's going to draw Idaho State, because you're absolutely right. It plays to that style. The way the tournament is set up, you really have to be playing your best basketball. If you have an off game, you're not going to keep going in the tournament. So I think, and I will say this, these teams that finish 7, 8, 9, 10, they play on that opening day.
Yes.
They get momentum.
Yes, they do.
Having played on the floor.
And to get an off day, too.
And to go forward, though, to play the number 1 seed. So the next day, they're going to play the number 1 seed, right? And so I think, and you look at your number 1 and your number 2, they don't even get on the floor to shoot around for maybe 20 minutes before.
Totally.
So, if you are a Coach Sobolewski and you don't get in the top 6, you're still so hungry being in that 7, 8, 9, 10 area. And I look at Idaho State always being a weapon in the tournament.
Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, proudly presented today by Don Maddox, a pillar of the real estate industry here in Missoula and around Montana. She's the broker and owner of Engel and Volkers Real Estate.
I'm Dawn Maddox with Engel & Volkers Western Frontier. I've been in the industry for about 15 years and started Engel & Volkers about 7 years ago. I handle everything from first-time home buyers to very unique properties throughout Western Montana. Specialize in ranches, high-end luxury homes, and even commercial. So kind of full service in the real estate industry. My background is in marketing, so I really view each listing as a unique opportunity. I'm always thinking about what audience we're going for, how we're going to reach them, and do my very best to find a buyer for each property that I list. Once I learned about Engel & Volkers and the unique marketing opportunities that they have through many of their co-op programs, I just knew that it was a platform I really needed for the listings that I represent. As a consistent top producer in the state of Montana, I bring a high level of expertise and customer care to my clients so that I can get their goals achieved. I really pride myself on white glove customer service, regardless of the price point. I do whatever I can to take care of the clients that I have. If you're thinking about buying or selling in Western Montana, I would be so honored to represent you. Just give me a ring.
Krista, I know you've gotten to know Dawn in recent months, and you're very impressed with her business
I am very
acumen.
impressed with her. And the way to contact her would be to visit her website, www.makemthome.com, or visit her Instagram and join her 45,000 followers and give her a follow because she's pretty impressive.
Her Instagram is awesome. I
know.
was looking at this before the show. I mean, some of the properties she's selling are just exquisite, and the way that she displays them with all of the video technology and the flyovers and all sorts of stuff is pretty cool, pretty impressive. So if you have real estate needs, Dawn Maddox, appreciate her for her support of Around the Big Sky and Women's Hoops. More on Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, including a standing update, player of the week, net rankings updates, and more. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here. Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops. Krista Redpath, our Big Sky Conference basketball analyst, joining me. Coulter Nuanez in studio. Today is presented by Dawn Maddox, broker and owner of Engel & Volkers Real Estate. Appreciate Dawn and her real estate firm for their continued support. We'll take a look at the Big Sky Conference standings. Not much has changed at the top two spots. Montana State sitting there still unbeaten, 14-0, 17-game winning streak, 24-2 overall, the record for the Montana State women. Northern Arizona kept pace after losing in Bozeman. They've only lost 2 conference games. They're both to the Cats, but they sit there at 12-2. They're 21-6 overall, third straight 20-win season under Lori Payne. Idaho alone in third place despite their recent struggles. They're at 8-5. Weber State alone in fourth place at 7-6. Eastern Washington making some upward movement. They've certainly played a lot better as of late. They've won 3 in a row, and they sit at 6-7, which is half a game ahead of Montana. Then you got Northern Colorado, Sac State, Idaho State, and Portland State. Not a ton of movement, but Eastern Washington winning some games here to move ahead, specifically of the Lady Grizz, I think is good progress for Jody Gleason's squad.
Well, I think they've all shown that there's been glimpses, right? They've been able to put together quarters of basketball, which strings together a few wins. But they've had some bumps and bruises. But what it also tells me, Coulter, is they're dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Because these are the types of teams that could just put together a run at the right time. I mean, even the Lady Grizz, after they had the 1-point loss here at Dahlberg Arena, they rattled off 3 nice wins.
Yes.
Right after that. You know, they beat Portland State, Sac State on the road, though. That's a tough road trip.
Yes.
You know, and then beat UNC. Now they've slipped up and, you know, lost to NAU and Idaho State and Weber State, but there was a run there. So we
Yes.
know it's possible for them to string together some good basketball.
Yeah, no doubt. I picked Eastern Washington as my team that I thought could go out and surge down the stretch, and then they proved me right by winning again this weekend. And the reason I think that they're a team that could make some noise, first of all, I know Jody Gleason, she's a great coach, and I think people were wondering what her team would be like after she lost all these premier players. I mean, she had the best player in the league last year in Jamie Loetta, and, you know, one of the best leaders in the league in Jacinta Buckley, one of the best scorers in the league. You know, Leah Alexander, one of your favorites.
Yeah.
And I think people just
J.D.
totally,
Martin.
I mean, they just totally expected Eastern to just be totally down this year. And then that was true at first, but you knew that Jody Gleason was going to get them going. And I think that just the coaching prowess, you get into a Big Sky game in the tournament, I think she herself can outcoach somebody and make some noise. So,
that's your sleeper. I struggle a little bit with Weber State's certainly been a team that I've been recognizing lately.
Sure.
as a team that could really, maybe put together some good basketball when it counts. I still do think Sac State, although, they lost 2 in a row, they're sitting at 4-9. They are a team that could potentially, look to make a run. But then also, Idaho State, you look at the fact that they have 4 conference wins, but they have 2 overtime losses, both to Weber State. They went to overtime twice with Weber State and lost both. So they could easily be sitting at 6-7, Coulter.
Right.
So that's another team that definitely could be in the mix.
Player of the week this week in the Big Sky Conference. What a surprise. Sophie Glancy wins yet another one. She averaged 21 points and 11.5 rebounds for the weekend. I mean, I get it. She had 21 points and 12 rebounds against Portland State. She had 21 points and 11 rebounds against Sac State. She's got 14 double-doubles in 27 games this year. Her stats are ridiculous. I guarantee you she's going to be first team all conference. She might be the MVP in the league. I thought it should have been Mara Dykstra this weekend.
I know.
I did. I mean, she scored 29 points. She hit 6 threes against Idaho State. But again, both of them deserving candidates, certainly.
We can't overlook a Sophie Glancy. Not only is she scoring like crazy, she shoots a high percentage. She shoots 50% from the field.
Yes.
So she's really good around the basket. She's also averaging 2.5 steals a game. So she's agile and active and can really get after it on both ends of the floor. So I don't want to overlook her. They haven't been able to get past Montana State yet. So, she might be getting the player of the week, but you still have those 2 nagging losses, and you have a really big block to get through to win the Big Sky Conference tournament.
One other thing that stood out in the release this week from the league, Krista mentioned this, but Montana State 17th in the nation in scoring defense, 55 points per game. Taylor Chiric has 83 steals for the Bobcats, and that is the number 1 mark amongst Division I freshmen, and one of the leading marks in the nation, period. And the Bobcats as a team averaging 14.3 steals per game. They have a turnover margin that's 3rd nationally. They are forcing 10 more turnovers than they're giving up. So they're forcing 24 turnovers a game and only turning the ball over 14 times per game. That is the formula for having such a great start to your season.
Teams just blow up against them. I mean, Idaho State had 28 turnovers. Weber State had 28 turnovers. I mean, really, when you go back, UNC had 25. The Lady Grizzlies only had 17, and that was actually a really
100%.
good number for them.
Yes.
They played it really well. They are disruptors, and they really play the passing lanes. They get in the angles. They play the gaps. They strategically have a plan on the defensive end. That trap is so tough with those long arms and just agile players. And you look at them as a team. Taylor Chiric's leading the way with steals. She's getting a lot of the individual accolades. But looking at the fact that this Bobcat team ranks 3rd in the nation in steals at 14.3, that just shows that there are other players on the team as well.
No doubt. And the fact that they can sick the trap on you with their bench, and then the starters can come in after being out and getting rest, and they can continue the trap. A lot of times you just can't trap for these long periods of time, but they can, because they can just run the trap for 4 minutes with the bench and then roll the starters back in and do it for basically a whole quarter. And that's where you see teams just completely unravel, because they'll have to make a sub. They'll have to call a timeout, and they just completely lose their composure. The mid-major poll this week saw some movement again. Montana State up a couple spots. They're number 10 in this week's College Insider mid-major rankings. And Northern Arizona hangs in the top 20 as well. They are number 16. So those two things will definitely be good for those teams come tournament time, but probably still a one-bid league. So we'll see. But either one of those teams to win the Big Sky tournament, if they can, it'll be good for seeding, being ranked in that mid-major poll. Around the Big Sky in women's hoops, probably presented by Don Maddox, broker and owner of Engel and Volkers.
Don Maddox has built a reputation for connecting clients with their dream properties across Montana's stunning landscapes. With a sharp eye for opportunity and a deep love for the region, she's an expert at navigating the complexities of real estate, particularly in high market values like ranches, land holdings, and luxury estates. Beyond her professional success, Don has a passion for community involvement as an anchor donor for the YMCA, and she never misses an opportunity to support the Special Olympics. You can also find Dawn hosting her own podcast, Just Dawned on Me, where she engages with medical pioneers, innovative business leaders, acclaimed authors, and local creatives. Not sure, Coulter, where I fit into that, but I was a guest on her December 7th episode, which was an honor. Dawn is so personal, warm, and the whole podcast experience actually was extremely comfortable. And that's what I really admire about Dawn is her professional accomplishments. I mean, how can you argue with $1 billion in sales?
I mean, she's one of the biggest real estate producers in the history of the state of Montana.
But one of her underlying superpowers is just understanding strategic marketing and media placement. She owns her social media spaces and presence with her consistency, but also genuineness. So give Dawn a follow on Instagram, join her 45,000 followers at make.montana.home, or visit her website, makemthome.com.
Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops, take a look at this week's slate of games, including the rivalry game in Bozeman next. Around the Big Sky Women's Hoops this week, proudly presented by Don Maddox, broker and owner of Engel and Volkers Real Estate. All right, let's talk about the upcoming schedule for this week in the Big Sky Conference. Thursday, Northern Arizona at Idaho. It's a good, has a chance to be a good game. This is number 2 versus number 4 in the conference. NAU's won 3 in a row. Idaho's lost 4 out of 6, but Idaho's very good at home. So we'll see how that one plays out. Northern Colorado's at Eastern Washington. Weber State at Sac State. And Idaho State is at Portland State. Then you got the inverse of that. Weber at Portland State. NAU at Eastern Washington. That's another one that could be a pretty pivotal game. Idaho State at Sac State. Northern Colorado at Idaho. And then the game that will have a ton of attention on it, Montana at Montana State, 2 p.m. from the Brick Breeden Fieldhouse. Any quick thoughts on any of those other games? What do you think of NAU at Idaho on Thursday?
Well, that's a game I definitely want to keep my eye on.
Yeah, totally.
So it'll be interesting just to see. I mean, NAU obviously high octane, very offensively driven, can just really take teams out of it because they catch you on your heels.
Yes.
And this Idaho team has had struggles on the defensive end, and they just haven't been able to truly get stops when it counted and then score on the other end. Certainly a game that I'm going to keep my eye on.
The rivalry game in Bozeman, huge ramifications on both sides. For Montana State, they're looking to break the school record for consecutive wins. They're also looking for their 25th win, which would push them into the top 3 in school history in total victories. They could move to 15-0 in conference play. And probably actually the most important internal narrative is that the seniors at Montana State could finish undefeated against Montana in Bozeman. I talked to KJ Martin, formerly KJ Lamardo, on Monday, and she said that was the one they're thinking about. You know, they're a very process-oriented team. They don't necessarily talk about the win streak and being undefeated, but she said the one thing that I have thought about and that I really want is to maintain the home court against Montana. For Lady Grizz, they're on a 3-game skid, but what momentum that could create if you go on the road and win in Bozeman?
Well, also, I think these rivalry games, all of that can go away. And you can, maybe the Lady Grizz can just go over there and play loose because they have nothing to lose, right? Montana State has some to lose with this game. They're going to be wearing their Gold Rush uniforms. It's going to be a good fan base over at the Brick. Lots of fans. But if you're the Lady Grizz, you just go in there and play a very similar style than you did January 25th against them in Dahlberg Arena when you only lost by 1. Which, how did you do that? You took care of the basketball. You made sure you passed around defenders. They did a good job with timing on offense. They found some open shooters. Avery Waddington had a great game, but so did Danny Barch. I mean, she had 16 rebounds and 10 points, Coulter. So she really showed up. Abby Schubert had some offense there as well, and then a Tyler McClimick Hall. So, and Isabel Zangaro is another X factor for Montana. I also think that if you can get her those easy shots around the basket, basketball can be so much easier if you can get those easy 2-foot shots. And so you put her in good post position and run that high-low with a Danny and an Izzy Zangaro, and you might get some easy baskets with the Bobcats.
I totally agree. I think one place when the Lady Grizz have been really good this last month or so is it's when they can find flow with their starting lineup, as well as then when they bring Zangaro in off the bench, because she provides this alternative style that provides this mismatch. And when they're flowing with the starters and then she comes in and they continue to flow, now the other team gets on their heels and it's this weird mismatch. And then they put the starters back in and they can run and gun. That's when Montana has been at their best here these last 8 to 10 games.
Well, and I will, to your point right there, it reminded me of the Northern Colorado game. Izzy Zangaro had 21 points off the bench. This is the game they beat UNC 70-64 in front of 2,400 fans at Dahlberg Arena. It was really an exciting game. But she did exactly what she needed to do. And if you get 21 points from her and you can find ways for her to score easy around the basket, you'll be in the mix to put up 70 points like they did against UNC. You have to have these role players that can come off the bench and give you good offense. And to me, basketball is a lot easier when you try to get positioning, get those easy 2-foot shots versus trying to miraculously come up with these athletic plays or 3-point shots, maybe you're not getting that. Maybe you're not getting the 3-point shots to fall. But if you can find easy ones around the basket, that's definitely a way to compete with Montana State.
A huge factor in this game will also be for Montana State. Can they continue to force turnovers at the rate that they've been able to force them? And if you're Montana, can you take care of the ball like you did against the Cats at Dahlberg Arena? 17 turnovers in a normal game is a lot. 17 turnovers against Montana State is not a lot. I talked to Nate Harris a couple days ago, the interim head coach of the Lady Grizz, and he said last time around the magic number sort of was 18. Keep it under 18, and we'll be pretty good. That's where Montana was at. So, and that's why I think the game was really close. You mentioned it, Krista. When the Cats get it rolling with the forced turnovers and steals, the other teams unravel. And it's especially like that at home, and it could especially be like that in a rivalry game. If Montana, especially Matt Koenig, can take care of the ball, Lady Grizz have a chance to hang in this game from start to finish. If they unravel, Montana State can run away with this game.
Well, and that's when Montana State gets that momentum from the defensive end.
No doubt.
So, I mean, they came in third quarter against the Lady Grizz and played lockdown defense. They held the Lady Grizz to 13 points in the third quarter. First time around, they scored 19. And that just shows that they get that offensive surge from getting those defensive stops. It's just a game of momentum. And they definitely have been able to capitalize that on third quarter play. I will say this, the Lady Grizz have had some pretty amazing fourth quarters. The problem is they dig themselves into holes that they can't get out of because they're already down. So, I mean, they beat Montana State in the fourth quarter. They outscored them 22-14
Sure.
the last time. I mean, and they've had some games, even against Weber State, they played a phenomenal fourth quarter. They came real close, but it was just too big. It was just too deep of a hole.
Should be fun to see how the rivalry games play out. You can find Krista on the call on statewide television on MTN Scripps Sports. And we'll have a full recap for you the next time around the Big Sky in women's hoops rolls around. This week, proudly presented by Don Maddox, broker and owner of Engel and Volkers Real Estate. Anything else to add about the Big Sky this week before we get you out of here?
I think it's pretty exciting that we're getting down to the last couple of weeks of play. I'm on the call for all the tournament games,
Nice.
which is exciting. And so this time of year, I feel like you kind of find these teams that have players that step up at certain times that maybe they're meant to have their name called out, on one of these all-conference teams. And so I always think it's fun to watch these teams and how they come together. This basketball season's long.
It's definitely long.
They're starting in November, and so now it's like, all right, this is go time.
No doubt. Like I always say, this is the time of year. Teams that want to keep playing together, those are the teams that are going to stay together. Those are the teams that are going to win. The teams that don't want to be around each other anymore, they'll unravel, and their season won't last nearly as long. And it's always fun to see which way their paths lead them.